and successor agency to the redevelopment agency to order, and turn this time over to the city attorney for a report on the closed session.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, and the public. We had two closed session items that were discussed, one about potential litigation and the other about employee evaluations, and we do not have any reportable action on either item.
Thank you, Councilor. We will adjourn this meeting to a meeting on Monday, January 4th, 2021 that will take place via Zoom webinar. Closed session items will be discussed at 5:30 p.m. The open session will commence at 7 p.m. On March 16, 2020, the City Council declared a local emergency in response to the global COVID-19 outbreak. Serving the public health and safety of our employees and the public is our top priority. In accordance with California Governor's Executive Order N-25-20 regarding the Brown Act and guidance from the California Department of Public Health on gatherings, this meeting is taking place by teleconference. Council chambers is closed. The public is accessing the meeting via the Pomona Internet streaming channel on the city's website. Council members and I, along with the city manager, the city attorney, city clerk, and executive team are all in different locations. Please bear with us as the technology may disrupt the flow of the meeting. The agenda has been modified to accommodate the needs of a council meeting that is teleconference. And with that, actually, Victor, I'll ask you to go ahead and lead us in the pledge, and then we'll go back to D1 for the next round. Okay? Everyone will please stand.
Thank you, Mayor. Everyone will please put their right hand over their heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. You may be seated.
Thank you, Councilmember Preciado. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Nolte.
Present.
Councilmember Preciado.
Here.
Vice Mayor Garcia.
Vice Mayor Garcia?
I'm here.
Okay, we can barely hear you, just so you know.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ontiveros Cole.
Here.
Councilmember Lustro.
Here.
Councilmember Torres.
Here.
And Mayor Sandoval.
Here. Next item.
Next item, presentations. There's a presentation on the 2020 San Gabriel Valley Energy Champion Awards to the City of Pomona by the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments.
I'd like to welcome Chris Diggs, as well as Alexander Fung from the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. Alexander, welcome. And Chris, do you want to just sort of set us up, and we'll turn it over to Alexander.
Well, I don't really have much to set up here. Alexander has a presentation for us, but we're happy to have him here tonight and happy to receive the award. So, Alexander, take it away.
Thank you very much. Please give me 1 second as I share my screen here. Is this working for everyone?
It looks good.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Thank you so much for allowing the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments to provide this presentation. It is a great honor to be here, and we really want to celebrate this as we wrap up 2020. And the city really did accomplish a lot in the field of energy efficiency. So we really want to thank our council and our staff with this very quick 3 to 4 minute presentation. And we're just so happy to present this award. Just a quick background, this award is sponsored by the San Gabriel Valley Energy Wise Partnership. This is a partnership that our Council of Governments implements with SoCalGas to provide financial incentives for our cities and our school districts and help them install energy efficiency measures. Through this partnership, we provide a lot of education and outreach efforts related to energy efficiency and conservation. And this partnership is funded by the California Public Utilities Commission. Our awards were launched earlier this year in partnership with SoCalGas. And through the structure, we recognize San Gabriel Valley cities and agencies' efforts for increasing energy efficiency in their facilities and communities through this award structure. And there's quite a lot of requirements that cities and agencies have to accomplish in order to receive recognitions in either the bronze, silver, and gold categories. And earlier in October, the city of Pomona became one of the first San Gabriel Valley cities to reach the gold tier, which is the highest tier, by completing a wide variety of actions, including attending our energy work group and meetings and trainings, audited and benchmarked municipal facilities to review energy usage, held meetings with the COG to discuss potential energy efficiency projects, and even collaborated with the COG to host outreach activities on Earth Day. This is an ongoing event that we've been partnering with the cities for the past few years. And I do want to mention that it is a great accomplishment. Earlier this month, we recognized a total of 15 cities and agencies at our energy work group meeting. And the city of Pomona is one of the first few cities that really reached gold. So I just want to congratulate and mention that it's a huge accomplishment. Right now, we're working with the city as well as the Southern California Regional Energy Network to implement 2 boiler replacements, whole building retrofits at the Pomona Public Library, as well as the Palomares Park and Community Center. We really do want to applaud the City Council's commitment to lead the San Gabriel Valley region by example through addressing energy efficiency first in their municipal facilities. We also want to thank the city manager and the city's environmental compliance supervisor, Julie Carver, and her team for engaging with our partnership and leading the efforts to implement these actions. While we cannot be there in person to present the awards, it is a very nice plaque, as you can see in the picture there. Julie is very happy holding that glass plaque. And we did share that with the staff. So congratulations once again. And we really look forward to continuing working with you next year on energy efficiency actions. So thank you so much for your time.
Mr. Fung, thank you so much. And I see that Julie's in the picture there. I'm sure Julie had a lot to do with this. I know that she's very active in ensuring that Pomona is engaged, particularly on environmental issues, and certainly pushing us to be our very best as a city on these important issues of the day. So thank you again, Mr. Fung. Just for clarity, that the thing that, did you say that the little item that Julie's holding is gold, is made of gold?
It's made of glass, but it is the gold here.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I was just double checking. Okay. Listen, thank you so much. And Chris, thank you so much to your team. Please express on behalf of the council our thanks. And I know this is a team effort, a community effort. We certainly appreciate being recognized by the COG. And Alexander, not every city received either a gold, silver, or bronze. Is that correct?
Yeah, not every city did. So congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Wishing you all the best over the holidays. Okay, you have a good one.
Thank you, sir.
Any comments from the council on this?
I just want to say congratulations to Chris, Julie, and their entire team. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Preciado. Okay, we can go ahead and move on to the next item.
Okay, next item is City Manager Communications. Oh, I'm sorry. No, next item is Mayor Councilmember Communication. These are reports on conferences, seminars, and regional meetings attended by the mayor and City Council and announcements of upcoming events.
Okay, thank you, Rosalia. We'll go ahead and start with Councilmember Nolte in District 1.
The only thing I would mention is that I am in the process of doing interviews for commissioner positions that I'll be appointing for the 7 commissions. And the way I've been doing it is people are signing up for an interview with me and filling out a short questionnaire. The way to find out how to do that, if you are interested, is to look at my social media. My Instagram account is John Nolte City Council, and my Facebook is something like that. I can't remember what it is, but you should be able to Google it. And then it'll have a link to set up to do an interview and the questionnaire. And I'm accepting applications from anywhere in the city, and I've been having a lot of fun talking to people, and we'll be making those decisions soon. So thank you very much. Thank you, Councilmember Nolte. Councilmember Preciado.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Thank you to everyone that helped and participated on the Christmas parade. That being said, happy holidays to everyone. Be safe out there. Thank you for everybody doing a toy drive, toy delivery, food drive, and who continue to do humanitarian efforts. Please be safe out there with the coronavirus continuing numbers to increase, and we wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Vice Mayor Garcia.
Can you hear me, Mayor?
Better.
Okay, wonderful. So I want to echo what my colleague, Councilmember Preciado said. I really believe that during this difficult year, every single person receiving food or a toy or some kind of assistance is really grateful to the organizations that have stuck out this year and said, with restrictions, we are going to go ahead and continue with our events and our drives and move this forward. So thank you to all the organizations out there helping our community celebrate the holidays. And I really do want to wish everyone in the city of Pomona a happy holiday season. Please stay safe. And as the commercial is saying right now, love means staying away this Christmas. Please be extra careful with your family members who are high risk with compromised immune systems. We definitely want to all be together to celebrate the next holiday season. And to those families who have lost loved ones already to this pandemic, I wish you strength and health in the new year. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Garcia. Councilmember Rose Cole.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank all of the organizations that did come together and give a wonderful Christmas joy to many of our children in the city of Pomona. They worked very, very hard. I had one myself, but not as big as the other ones. But you know what? Just bringing some joy into these children's lives is what makes it worthwhile. I also want to take a couple of seconds to really, the tragedy that happened on Gary and Pearl Avenue. It has been discovered that this person is now deceased. He was a motorcyclist that was killed on the corner. And I just want to take a moment for the family, whoever they are, that we are very, very sorry. We're sending our condolences to you. I've been here all my life in the city of Pomona. Gary and Pearl has always been a curved street that has gone east, north and south. And, I just want to let you know how it has changed over the course of the years, and I mean by speed. And I'm sure that people that have lived here are also aware of what I'm talking about. And so I did send an email to our city manager and our public works for a safety study on this corner on what we can do. Nothing has ever been accomplished on that particular corner. So before we get busy and the night goes long and we may not have much time to talk, that is what I'm presenting tonight as a request, not only for this family, but for everybody involved in the city of Pomona, that we are to drive careful, we are to stay safe, we are to, try to follow the traffic rules. I know sometimes it's not easy, but we need to take time and realize just how important one person's life is. Unfortunately, this family will not be together. So this is something that I think we really need to start considering. And I really hope that we also keep in mind the COVID regulations and everything else. Our count is way over 12,000 now. So, what does that tell us? We need to really start paying attention, and hopefully this surge will not get any worse. So Merry Christmas to everybody before it gets late. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Roscoe. Before we go on to Councilmember Lestro, I just wanted to add something, Councilmember Roscoe, to the situation, to the tragic situation that happened on Pearl and Gary, which a motorcyclist was hit and killed by a vehicle that, in essence, it was a hit and run, as I understand it. And the police did put out a possible description, or I should say a description of the vehicle. It's believed to be a white Chevy Avalanche that is 2002 in their report. So if anybody knows of somebody that has this type of vehicle and there is some damage to that vehicle, or if anybody who's doing body work on that type of vehicle, please call our police department. That person or set of individuals fled the scene, and consequently, certainly somebody lost their life as a result of that terrible tragic accident. So I just wanted to share that information. Councilmember Leschko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's, as always, good to see everybody this evening. I just want to echo my colleagues' wishes for Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of the residents that live in our great community. Also want to take this opportunity to thank our staff for all of the hard work that you do all year long for us to provide information to help us prepare for these meetings. I have a very keen understanding of the work that you do and the amount of time that you spend to provide the information to us to help us make decisions that are best for Pomona. So thank you for all of your hard work, and I want to thank each and every one of my colleagues for the work that you put in and your devotion to the city to help make it a better place to live and work. Just want to ask everybody for the holidays, keep your gatherings as small as possible, so we can help in not spreading what has become a terrible virus that is affecting a lot of families throughout the state and throughout the country. So wishing everybody the best for the holidays, and we'll see you in the new year, and hopefully 21 will be better than 2020. Thank you.
Councilmember Leschko, very nice background you have there. All right, Councilmember Torres.
Yes, thank you. Just want to take this opportunity to wish the residents of Pomona happy holidays and Merry Christmas. I also want to take this opportunity to remind folks that they can still sign up for my annual toy drive by 602053. So far, we have over 100 families registered into our system. My volunteers will be distributing toys citywide next week, and we'd be very happy to help you. So please feel free to contact me if you need assistance. The other thing I want to mention is that last week I had the opportunity to serve as an elector for President and Vice President of the United States. It was a great honor to be part of history and to watch our democratic process unfold. And even though, well, I want folks to know I voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And even though I voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I want the residents of Pomona to know that I'm looking forward to holding the Biden administration accountable. There's a lot of issues on the table. People need rent relief. Small businesses need money for assistance, and cities and states also need help during this pandemic. And there's been a lot of promises that have been put on the table. And I just want to reassure all residents of Pomona that although I did vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that I will hold the Biden administration accountable, and we will work to address many of these issues that I did outline. So with that, I do want to encourage the residents of Pomona to please have a very safe holiday season. COVID-19 is greatly impacting the residents of the city of Pomona, more so than any of the surrounding communities. So it's very important, it's very vital that we hunker down during the holidays and we diminish the spread of this virus. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I just have a few things to share, and then we can move on to the next item. First is I do want to thank my colleagues. I know most, if not all of you are recognize that these are very challenging times for families and for individuals, and you're finding ways to give to them, whether it's giving their children toys or clothes or shoes or gift cards. And so I just want to express my sincerest thanks to all my colleagues for doing that work. It's so important, given how challenging it is right now for so many families. Second, some of you may recall that there was a house fire on the 1600 block of East Kingsley Avenue, and just kudos and thank you to the LA County Fire Department for saving a young lady's life. Just could have been tragic. Some of you may recall that earlier this year we had a couple of young residents who lost their lives in a fire and tragically lost their parents thereafter. And so I really want to express my sincerest thanks to LA County Fire. Sometimes we don't recognize them in the work that they do, and these have been difficult times. I know there's been fires up in the Ganesha Hills area, and they had to respond to those fires. So just want to express my thanks. Third is that council may recall last year we did a proclamation in support of the celebration of Kwanzaa, and it was a proclamation that hereby proclaimed the week of December 26th through January 1st as Kwanzaa week in the city of Pomona. Although we don't have the formal proclamation this go around, the organizers and really the heart of it is Charles Holdick, who's organized the last year's and is organizing this year's. We'll have a celebration, and the community is invited. It's on Sunday, December 27th at 12 p.m. and it will be a virtual celebration. And so make sure that you guys, if you can find some time to support that effort, I would encourage you to. Just simply on Facebook, or if you want to message me, it's under Kwanzaa Joy Celebration. Two more things, just like Councilmember Lestro, I want to express my thanks to staff and wish you all the best over the holidays. I hope you know that we appreciate all the time and energy that you put in, sometimes operating with limited resources and trying to make the absolute best, provide the best services to our residents. And I just want to express my thanks to you and wish everyone in the community, I think I did this last time, it's a bit of a belated Happy Hanukkah, as well as a Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, and a Happy New Year to everyone, and be safe. And I think I'll just convey again, like my colleagues, this is an incredibly difficult time. I know that it's hard for people to follow the county order and the state order because there's a lot of frustration and people want to get on with their lives, but there are consequences. And can't emphasize enough how critical it is that people absolutely avoid gatherings at all costs. And that also goes for our businesses. I mean, our businesses also have to make sure that they're operating within the county order and state order, and be safe, and hoping everyone good health during these rather difficult days. With that, I turn it back to our city clerk for the next item.
Thank you, Mayor. Next item is City Manager Communications, and these are reports from the City Manager.
Nothing at this time, City Clerk.
Thank you.
Okay, next item.
Next item is public participation. In response to the global COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with California Governor's Executive Order N2520 regarding the Brown Act and guidance from the California Department of Public Health on gatherings, please note that comments for public participation or for a specific item on the agenda were accepted by email and will be read into the record by the city clerk. The deadline to submit email comments was 6 p.m. and comments will also be accepted via the Q&A feature on Zoom or by live comment by phone or internet. If you would like to comment, please indicate now to staff by either using the raise hand feature on Zoom, dialing *9 if you're calling in via phone, or leaving a comment in the Q&A box. Staff will call on you one at a time. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes for their comment. And this evening, Development Services Director Anita Gutierrez will be assisting me in reading the email comments into the record. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with the email comments. Our first comment this evening comes from Judith St. John. Ms. St. John says, I would like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to all of you for the work you do to represent our city. And I would especially like to thank the District 6 Councilmember Robert Torres for some of the great things he has done, specifically for District 6. The expenditure of District 6 funds for the infrastructure was well spent. The paving of Town Avenue from Foothill to Arrow Highway was a major accomplishment. Also important was the expenditure to make District 6 curbs ADA compliant. For all of his time on the City Council, I have found Councilmember Robert Torres to be transparent and honest in his dealings. Again, I send my thanks to all of you.
From Mike Suarez, it is time for Pomona's mayor and city council to stop ignoring the fact that Pomona's police department can't police itself. In just the recent past, Pomona's finest have been mired in courtroom drama concerning Christian Aguilar's unjust beating at the Pomona Fair. Not only did the Aguilar family sue and settle for thousands of dollars, but the city paid out thousands of dollars in lawyers and court fees because Pomona Police Department's internal affairs lied to the Aguilar family and the FBI. This is public tax dollars going to defend corrupt cops. This situation may not have spiraled out of control if a strong police review board was in place and had the power to subpoena witnesses, evidence, and the officers themselves. Please do not ignore the public's demand for a police review board.
Next comment is from Paige Bryn. My name is Paige Bryn and I'm a resident of Pomona. In June of 2018, the local paper featured an article that the city was planning to budget for carpet cleaning at the library, which according to the press was long overdue. That same year, your risk manager authorized over $2 million in general liability payouts, of which $666,000 were police payouts to claimants. Pomona is already in the local and national spotlight, portrayed as a violent police force that does not promote across race or across gender. On January 6, 2020, I spoke about the role of the city's risk manager and how payouts are not decreasing. From 2014 to present, the general liability claim payouts have averaged in excess of $2 million per year. For the future's sake, please redirect the culture of the police department and set standards of service. Enact the PPMA MOU from July 1st, 2019. For revenue's sake, please fix the problem with your risk management practices. Since over 90% of claims against the police are abuse-related, you need to re-educate and not tap into other departments' funds. For goodness sake, stand against the fact that PPD PAC made donations to 2 council campaigns of nearly $10,000 each for advertisements and mailers. There are resources such as the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. Last October, each of you received a copy of their guidelines. Thank you.
From Brian Brooks. My name is Brian C. Brooks, and I'm a resident of the Mountain Meadows community in the city of Pomona, 6th District. City Councilman of the 6th District, Robert Torres, has performed his duties in admirable and effective ways. I wish to recognize his efforts in coordinating and fostering cooperation with the citizens of his district, the city of Pomona, and various developers and others for the direct benefit and improvement of the northern part of our city. Robert Torres was directly responsible for creating cooperation between city staff, real estate developers, and the community of Mountain Meadows. In past times, the various parties would work individually and often at cross purposes with each other. Under Mr. Torres's leadership, consideration of each party's interests and concerns has minimized the conflicts through transparent communications and maximized the benefits to all concerned. In simpler terms, he eliminated a great deal of unnecessary time and effort. Mr. Torres was also instrumental in allowing the homeowners of North Pomona to have a voice in issues created by the Fairplex administration that directly affect our lifestyle, public safety, and property values. These continuing issues may best be resolved by keeping the lines of communication open for the benefit of all concerned.
Next comment is from Edward Samaniego. I submitted an application on March 10th, 2020 to rename Hamilton Park to Dr. Henry Ramirez Park. He and his family are Pomona natives who have contributed greatly to the community. He was the chair for the Mexican-American Committee during the Nixon administration and is an author of 2 books, including A Chicano in the White House. His sister, Rosanna Ramirez, is a nun and served at Sacred Heart as a counselor. His other sister was a nurse, his brother a teacher at Arroyo for over 20 years, and his other brother, Chalo Ramirez, was a Chicano activist in Pomona. The area is mostly Hispanic, and I want a name to represent the community that has been living there all these years. I have over 300 signatures on my petition and plan to get more. No one has gotten in touch with me regarding meetings or anything else. I would like to know the status of my application.
From Francisco Suarez, the Charter Commission is a commission enacted by the Pomona City Charter and is a public hearing. A coalition of concerned citizens, post police oversight starts today, have attended each commission meeting from the inception of the current session and have followed these meetings. We are requesting that the mayor, city council, and city assist the charter committee in placing the police commission on the ballot and prevent further bloodshed in the community to the community members.
And that was the final emailed comment this evening, Mayor. Checking in the Q&A box. We have Michelle, who's requesting to comment. Let's see. And also Eleanor Krasinski, Larry, and Natalie Chaidez. So we'll go ahead in order. First is Eleanor Krasinski. Ms. Krasinski, go ahead.
Good evening. Nice to see you all. It was brought to my attention that 2 city council meetings ago, there was a large number of comments about members in the community who are staying or living in the streets. And I wanted to share a little bit of personal work that myself and along with several other Pomona residents and friends have been engaging, which includes interacting with some of these folks. A lot of those comments were of the variety that, you know, property damage was being caused and like folks weren't really in the right spot and they should be moved. And what was experienced by some of the folks who were in some of those areas that were addressed was actually code compliance coming through, tents being broken down, people's things being taken. And this is often a very common response to folks who are staying there. But for me, I really like to remind everyone that we did pass a resolution to be a city of compassion. And what we've observed in the interactions of code compliance with the community members haven't been what I would experience as compassion. And I'd like to remind folks that there are people in the community who are responding to those people differently, checking in on them, bringing them food, bringing them bandages, bringing them blessings, bringing them tools that they need so that they can begin to experience the care that they want. And there are multiple groups of people in the community that are doing this kind of outreach, and we would like the city's response towards folks who are living in the street to be compassionate, to be human, and I would like to put out an open invitation to all of you to collaborate with us. I know some of you are, but we aren't currently happy with all the support that is being given, and would like to see a change in kind of a regulatory attitude towards people who are living in the street to one that is a little bit more rooted in kind of a courageous and creative approach to compassion. So, thank you.
Our next speaker is Larry O. Go ahead, Larry, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, Rosalie, I'm not hearing anyone.
I'm not either. Okay.
Maybe we can go to the next speaker.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can hear you on this row.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Sorry about that. Larry Ortega, Pomona resident. Family's been here about 115 years only. Just wanted to thank you first, all the city council members. You guys are doing a terrific job. I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing, especially in these times of crises. So thank you very much for that. I just have a couple of quick comments. No action that I'm actually asking for today, but just wanted to post you up on a couple of things that I found out. You all know that I'm working on 5G technology, trying to make our area, complete with digital access and, make sure that we have the latest technologies, fiber optics, et cetera. And what I've been finding out is that the city council, the municipalities actually represent the last line of defense to protect our communities. And I don't think that the city attorney or the city staff has enough information on the negative effects of 5G, such as what are Brillouin precursors, phased arrays, and millimeter waves. If staff and the city attorney is not familiar with these terms, then they really don't know the effects of 5G. And I think that would be good for us to start, educating ourselves on these issues. There's going to be a lot of promotion during this holiday season about 5G technology and all the wonderful things that it's supposed to be able to do. I would say it's going to be rammed down our throats and everything. It's going to be all these positive things that it says it's supposed to be doing. A lot of it is just, it's a lot of myth, a lot of hopeful thinking. It's coming, but it's not going to solve the digital divide. It's not designed to solve the digital divide. That's not what it's about. And it's not going to really do anything in terms of performance with our phones, although they're saying that it will be. There's a lot of negativity around it. And one of the things that, that the promoters of 5G technology are saying that, they're promising driverless cars and driverless buses. And I've personally been engaged for many years in this city around meetings about how we can maximize Pomona's economic opportunities. And not one time, not a single time have I heard anybody say, oh, well, if we only had driverless cars and driverless buses, boy, would that make an impact. So in actuality, I'm asking the public and city council and staff, to not believe the hype. Let's take a couple of steps back. Let's figure out how we really want to be how we can deploy technology in this community so that everybody is served. And we have a great infrastructure and technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Our next speaker is Natalie Chaidez. Ms. Chaidez, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, council and community. My name is Natalie Chaidez. I'm here tonight in representation of the Pomona Vision 2030 team with the Pomona Community Foundation. First and foremost, I would like to thank our community and council that joined us about 2 weeks ago at our first community town hall around the Pomona Vision 2030 project, in which we discussed what does the project look like for 2021 and what are the goals. The big goals being this collective work where we are listening not just to what our leadership is saying, but also our residents are saying, who are really our most valuable, our most valuable feedback to, around quality of life in Pomona, and how do we not only create a metric system to track quality of life in Pomona that the community agrees upon, but how are we also encouraging a future plan for building structures that support improving these metrics. It's a long conversation. We are really excited about the first meeting we had with over 50 participants in our English section, and with around 10 in our Spanish. We look forward to continuing to partner with other organizations, advocates, leaders, and residents themselves as we grow out this program and make a plan together as a community. So I just wanted to thank everyone and wish everyone a happy holiday. And I will be continuing to update everyone in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chaidez. Our next speaker is Michelle. Go ahead, Michelle, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, and thank you to the city clerk for helping to run the meeting. My name is Michelle. I'm a resident here in Pomona, and I also wanted to speak in regards to some of the public comments made at the last city council meeting on December 7th. I wanted to express my sincere disappointment and pain from hearing all of these comments speaking harshly on the Pomona community of residents living on the streets. The complaints I heard were sounded extremely insensitive and dehumanizing to our unhoused neighbors and people who are already in marginalized and extremely vulnerable communities, aside from the recent and far-reaching impacts of the pandemic. There are community members, myself included, who regularly reach out to these folks living on the streets and provide what we can in meals and mutual aid and necessary items, but I don't see city council members reaching out to these communities or bothering to ask what it is that they require to get through these difficult times. Instead, we witnessed just as recent as last week, code enforcement harass and remove folks' belongings and what little they have, only to either throw away in the trash or destroy, and further displacing these communities. It's really heartbreaking to hear all of these comments calling for the council to do something about this quote unquote homeless issue, but folks and the council aren't even considering what our unsheltered communities actually need to survive and thrive. These communities are also your constituents, and they are also members who you were all elected to represent. And some of the areas specifically mentioned in last meeting's comments are in your districts, such as Councilmember Ontiveros Cole's district, off of Holt. And as a matter of fact, there's folks living on the streets in all of your districts. So I'm asking you all to please think about and ask, what are you all doing also to effectively help out our neighbors on the streets, and how can you reach out and listen with compassion and empathy to their needs and concerns, instead of both literally and figuratively tearing them down and sweeping them away. I look forward to hearing from you about this issue, and thank you for your time and happy holidays.
Thank you, Michelle. Do we have any other members of the public who would like to speak? Mr. Al Villanueva? Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm sorry. Like Larry Ortega spoke before me, my family's been here about 120 years, and I'm going to speak briefly on 2 issues. I'm joining Ed Samaniego on this recommendation that Hamilton Park be renamed after Dr. Henry M. Ramirez. Just a short history on Henry. He was the person that was enlisted by President Nixon to open up the doors for Mexican Americans in Washington, D.C. Kennedy and LBJ did some work, but in terms of Mexican Americans, he was the primary person that worked with Nixon on establishing Hispanic Heritage Week in September 1973. And mind you that I am a progressive Democrat, okay? One of the founders of MECHA, founded El Barrio Park in Claremont. But I really do believe that the city of Pomona has many heroes here in Claremont. And I knew the Ramirez family. I knew Chano and the Chicano movement. Henry's sister, Inez Ramirez, is a fellow parishioner of mine at OLA. And I really think it would be of great historic significance as we as citizens of the city of Pomona consider balancing it. Even though he was a Republican, he did a lot and opened the door for a lot of Mexican Americans in Washington when he was placed on Nixon cabinet. The other issue is I just want to echo what Michael Suarez said, but I want to suggest we don't have a police commission oversight like we have in Berkeley, because it's adversarial. I have spoken with a few of you council members over the years. I would like to see us replicate what we have in Claremont. After the Landrum killing in 1889, we had to pay out $500,000. And so I really do believe that council members still seriously consider establishing a police commission, but more so, it's not necessarily the commission, but it's what we're doing here in the community of Claremont, and that's community policing. I want to wish you all a happy New Year and a Merry Christmas, and let's stay safe and safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Villanueva. I have another hand up from someone on the phone. If you can let us know your name for the record, and to unmute yourself, you can press *6. Caller, are you there? Hello? Caller? To unmute yourself, you can press *6.
Hello?
Yes, there you are. You have 3 minutes. Your name for the record, please.
Okay. My name is Ron Kovas.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, and all of Pomona. The TV. I'm speaking to you tonight on behalf.
Caller, are you still there? Mr. Kovas? Mayor, I don't hear him anymore.
Okay. Mr. Kovas, if you can hear us, if you'd be willing to submit your comments via email, and we will make sure that we put that as part of the public record. And, but I think we should go ahead and move on. Do we have any other public speakers?
At this time, we do not, Mayor.
Okay, all righty. If I could turn it back to you, Rosalia, for the next item.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Next item is consent calendar. All matters under the consent calendar may be enacted by a single motion without separate discussion. If discussion or a separate vote on any item is desired by a council member, that item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. All consent items pulled for discussion will be limited to 5 minutes. If they are not enacted upon within 5 minutes, the mayor will move that consent item to the end of the agenda after consideration of the public hearings. Any motion relating to an ordinance or a resolution shall also waive the reading of the ordinance or resolution and include its introduction or adoption as appropriate. And at this time, Mayor, we do not have any comments for any of the consent calendar items.
Are there any council members who wish to pull any one of the 14 items before us? And just in the future, if you could let me know in advance, I would appreciate it. Thank you. But go ahead, Councilman Rinaldi.
Sorry, I'm still catching up to procedure.
Oh, I've never asked that before, to be honest with you, but I'm going to ask for it now moving forward, but it has nothing to do with you not telling me anything, Councilman Rinaldi. I appreciate it.
Sure, I'd just like to briefly talk about number 2.
Okay, we'll pull 2. Any others from the council? Okay, the only 2 that I want to pull, I do want to pull 2 myself, and I did let myself know earlier. Number 7 and number 8. The impact fees on number 7 and the ROPS on number 8. All right, so -2 and 7 and 8, can I get a motion to approve consent calendars, item 1 through 14 minus those 3?
Motion
moved.
to balance.
Okay, Vice Mayor Garcia, and I have a second by Councilmember Lestro. Rosalia, will you please do the roll call?
Nolte?
Aye.
Preciado?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Ontiveros Cole?
Excuse me, I was hoping that somebody would pull number 13. Is that possible to still pull 13, please?
That's fine. So the motion was to approve 13. Do you just want to make some comments regarding this item, or do you want to vote on that item separately?
I did want to vote on that item, Mayor.
Okay, because we did discuss it at the last meeting, and
Yes.
questions were supposed to be, so I want to make sure that we move accordingly. On
Yes,
that
of
item.
course, and I did speak with Mr. Diggs today.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, let's, will you amend your motion, Vice Mayor Garcia?
I amend my motion to move the balance excluding numbers 2, 7, 8, and 13, Mayor.
Thank you, and Councilmember Lustro, you're good with the second?
Second as amended.
All right, so, other than that, Councilmember Roscoe, do you approve the rest of the consent calendar?
Yes, I do, Mayor.
Thank you. All righty, I'll let you continue on, Rosalia.
Thank you, Mayor. Lustro,
Yes.
Torres,
Yes.
and Sandoval.
Yes. Okay, let's go ahead and start with number 2. I know Councilmember Nolte asked us to pull that item. Councilmember Nolte, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, the thing I wondered, would just like to know from staff or somebody there, I counted at least a dozen, if not more, written policies and processes that need to be developed. And I would like to know if there's a timeline on when those will be developed and what the plan is to you know, assuming we accept this today, what's the plan to go forward on those policies and recommendations?
Rene Guerrero, Public Works Director.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Councilmember Nolte, thank you for the question. There is no set timeline yet, but I would. This has been a long process in the making, and this is kind of a big milestone for us. So to get this far in this process and to get these in front of you for your consideration and approval, with fingers crossed, we hope this gets approved. But once it's approved, we will continue moving forward and keeping the ball rolling to start implementing these programs and projects and you know, trying to address the challenges as efficiently as possible, I will say, but no set timeline at this moment.
Okay, I would just encourage, I think, you know, I noticed that there's a lot of basically sample policies that are in there. It would seem like those could be adopted fairly quickly. And, you know, there probably are examples for the ones that don't have samples within the documents themselves that we could pull. So I realize it's going to take a long time probably to do a lot of the actual work, but the policies should be something we could get into place fairly quickly, knowing that they can always be revised if need be. But I'd like to do that sooner rather than later. So I just wanted to.
I would agree with you. The things we have samples for, I would consider low-hanging fruit, and I think we can work with our HR department to get those things implemented sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, Councilmember Nolte?
No, that was what I wanted to address.
Okay, let's go ahead and take that item. Can I get a motion for item number 2 on the consent?
I move to approve it.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second,
Vice
Mayor.
Mayor Garcia? Okay, all right, roll call.
Nolte,
Yes.
Preciado,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Ontiveros Cole,
Yes.
Lustro,
Yes.
Torres,
Yes.
Sandoval.
Yes. Item 7.
Item 7 is receive and file the City of Pomona Annual Report on Development Impact Fees for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020.
Okay, so I have a question. I'm not sure who I should direct my question to, and actually maybe a city attorney question, or maybe Anita Terrace, I'm not sure. Two things. One is the parks fee. This is just basically a requirement that we need to update each year. Is that correct? There was the impact fees. That's just standard. It's something that we're required to do.
Yeah, I can comment on that, Mayor. This is Andrew.
Okay, Andrew, Finance Director.
Yeah. Yes, this is an annual update to comply with the State of California Government Code that we report on the annual figures of development impact fees for the closing fiscal year. In this case, for the fiscal year 2019-20 ended June 30th of 2020.
Okay, so, okay, thank you, Andrew. And then, Counselor Sonia, if you give me some guidance, and this probably might go under council member initiatives. The report shows the the public arts fee, which is 1%. And one of the things that I'd like to propose is some, not a change to the 1%, but a change to how we allocate the 1% for public art. But I assume that that has nothing necessarily to do with this report. This is kind of just a receive and file, and that would probably make more sense for me to raise this under council member initiatives.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Correct. Yes.
I thought I'd try though. Alrighty. All right. So I'll move to approve this item. Can I get a second?
Second, Mayor.
Okay, Vice Mayor Garcia got a second. Do roll call, Rosalia?
Nolte,
Yes.
Graciado,
Aye.
Garcia,
Yes.
Ontiveros Cole,
Yes.
Lustro,
Yes.
Torres,
Yes.
Sandoval.
Yes. All right. We move on to item number 8, which is, go ahead, Rosalie.
Sure. Item number 8 is the approval of the recognized obligation payment schedule, or ROPS, for 21-22 fiscal year for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, approving the administrative budget for the same period and authorizing the transmittal of the ROPS and administrative budget to the Oversight Board for approval.
Yeah. Thank you, Rosalia. I thought it was important that this item be pulled so that we can give the council an update on how we're coming along with the ROPS. And I've asked Deputy City Manager Kirk Peltzer to give us an update on where we're at with that process. And some of you might be looking at it and wondering what that is. And so I wanted to make sure that Kirk gave the council and the community an opportunity to hear where we're at with the ROPS. Obviously, this is something that comes up every year that we have to do, but there's more to it than just that. Kirk, can I go ahead and turn it over to you? You're on mute, just so you know. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Sorry. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, as the mayor indicated, the ROPS, which stands for Recognized Obligation Payment Schedule, is a relatively annual routine process that we go through as part of the ongoing dissolution of redevelopment. And Andrew can speak to some of the details about the general aspect of the ROPS, but in particular, as part of this process, as the mayor mentioned, the city's been engaged with the County of Los Angeles on some technical aspects of the deferral agreements that were entered into by the former redevelopment agency in the County of Los Angeles. And that's been an ongoing process for several years, and it has been delayed in part by COVID. We last met with the county in February, and we're hoping to do that again soon. But there's been value to the process recently because the Oversight Board, which is the regional supervisorial district oversight board, which is in charge with reviewing RDA dissolution items like sale of property and approving these ROPS. They have been meeting on a monthly basis, and Mayor Sandoval sits on that board. And it has enabled us to bring a higher level of attention to some of the inequities of the county deferral agreements that were entered into throughout the county. And I can't get into a lot of details tonight because there are ongoing negotiations, but Pomona was treated with a bit of indignity in that process going back to the 80s with higher interest rates than many of the other cities that entered into similar type of deferral arrangements with the county. So we've been successful in getting that item sort of spotlighted at the Oversight Board, and frankly, it put the county in a position of having to come to make a presentation, and they did so last week at the most recent Oversight Board meeting. And it kind of put a spotlight on the fact that there is a lot of inequity, or there was a lot of inequity in how these agreements were entered into back in the 80s and 90s. And so I think it's given us some additional momentum to be able to have a dialogue with the county about trying to right that situation. So I feel pretty optimistic that in 2021, we may be able to reach a resolution that would allow us to renegotiate some of the terms of that. And ultimately that will mean that property tax will be coming back to the city at a greater number at a sooner date than otherwise.
Thank you, Kirk. And I could perhaps go into just slightly more detail just to give the council perspective on what we're talking about here. Just the general ballpark number that I'm looking at that was borrowed to do these projects in the, what is now Phillips Ranch and South Gary project. If I'm not mistaken, it was about 15 to 20 million, Kirk?
The original principal was about 16.5 million.
16 point. And if we were to pay at the interest rate that was agreed upon back in the 80s, over the course of the next 20 to 25 years, we would be looking at over $100 million plus for a $16.5 million loan, which would adversely impact our ability to deliver services to the residents of Pomona. And it's a fight that has to happen. We're working on negotiate. We're in the process of negotiation, which is something that the Oversight Board and I have been pushing relentlessly. And I can tell you, when you look at some of the communities that are most impacted, they're primarily immigrant working class communities. If you look at the numbers, for example, at Huntington Park, hundreds of millions of dollars for a community that is in no way going to ever be able to pay back those dollars. So I share it with the council because if we're able to negotiate one on the interest rate, but also to negotiate the entire amount, that'll produce tremendous savings to the city, and it will allow property tax dollars to come back to this community, because I think sometimes people don't know, and Kirk and Andy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the dollars that are going in, that are coming from the residents who live in the Phillips Ranch area, we're not getting back all those dollars as a result of this agreement that happened back in the 80s. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and that's a problem. It's a serious problem. So I just want the council to be aware that we are taking steps to amend that issue. It's been ongoing for over close to 30 years now, and we're hoping to at least by next year to have a resolution to this issue. So as we resolve that issue, I will make sure that Kirk and Andy come back to share with us exactly what is happening with the city and the county. Thank you. Alrighty, move to approve item 8. Can I get a second? Alrighty, roll call.
Nolte,
Yes.
Preciado,
Mayor, I just wanted to say thank you very much for bringing that item up. When best applicable, can we have it brought up at closed session? I would really like to know an update, or even offline, you and I. But my vote is yes.
Absolutely.
Garcia,
Yes.
Ontiveros Cole,
Yes.
Lastro,
Yes.
Torres,
Yes.
Sandoval.
Yes. Okay, we move on to item 13. Councilmember Ontiveros Cole, I'll turn it over to you. I know you asked to pull the item.
Yes, Mayor, thank you very much. I just want to thank Chris, Mr. Diggs, for talking with me today. But at this point, I cannot agree with the approval tonight, and I just wanted to let you know. And even though it may be something that may be coming up in the future that will be beneficial for the city of Pomona, at this point, I feel that I cannot move forward on this item. Thank you.
Any other council members that wish to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion?
So moved.
So I have it seemed as if Lustro is always a few seconds ahead of Vice Mayor Garcia. And I suspect he has a better system because their mouths, they speak at the same time, but I hear Steve's voice. So, all right, I have a first by Councilmember Lustro and a second by Vice Mayor Garcia. Roll call.
Nolte,
Yes.
Preciado,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Ontiveros Cole,
No.
Lastro,
Yes.
Torres,
No.
Sandoval.
Yes. All right, that completes close. Boy, I was going to say closed session. That's it for consent calendar. Is that correct, Rosalia?
Yes, it is, Mayor.
All right, we can go ahead and move on to the next item.
Okay, next item is discussion calendar. Item number 15 is the finding of public benefit to the community at large, recommended expenditures, and recap of expended funds.
Okay, any questions, comments on finding a public benefit? If not, if I can get a motion.
Motion to approve.
I just want to confirm, just if you'll give me 1 second, I do want to confirm that and maybe my colleagues, I just didn't see it right off when I looked, is on the finding of public benefit, there was some support that was for the turkey giveaway by the Pomona Police Officers Association. Rosie, can you remind me if that's on there? I'd asked, it is. Okay, good. I thought so. I just wanted to make sure. Alrighty, do we have a motion for approval?
Yes, Councilmember Ontiveros Cole.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Roscoe. Do you have a second?
You're welcome.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, I think he was waiting for Vice Mayor Garcia. Again, Vice Mayor Garcia, you might want to look into some new technology.
Hey, this is full-provided technology, Mayor.
All right, put her on mute. All right, let's go, roll call, please.
Nolte?
Yes.
Preciado?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Ontiveros Cole?
Yes.
Lustro?
Yes.
Torres?
Yes.
Sandoval?
Yes. All right, if we can move on to the next item.
Okay, next item is item number 16, the approval of an amendment to the agreement with Fairplex regarding a processing of a specific plan application and interim use of property. And we do have email comments that were sent to us today regarding this.
Okay, and do we have a staff presentation on this item?
I do have just a few remarks, Mayor. So good evening, Mayor and Council. So the request before you this evening is to extend the term of the original agreement that was last before you in July of 2019. That agreement set in place the preparation and review of a specific plan to replace the F zone currently regulating the Fairplex via zoning. So that process began. The agreement was executed in August 2019. Faithfully, the Fairplex and staff began to work on that agreement in February of this year. We began monthly meetings with executive staff from Fairplex, my staff, to outline a robust and specific community outreach process. Unfortunately, shortly thereafter in March, COVID began. We shifted course and began online virtual meetings, still trying to vet a community process out. Although it couldn't be known what the extent of the COVID pandemic would have on Fairplex operations or the community. It became clear that the community plan, as we had anticipated, could not happen with any known specific timeframe. And that, I think, precipitated the request for an extension. And so that is what is before you this evening, is a extension to August 20th, 2024, where otherwise the term would expire August 20th, 2023. And I do have some changes. I know there was some changes brought to, and I think I said the dates wrong. So it's, it would have expired 2022. This would extend it to 2023, excuse me. And I'll just share my screen briefly. I know there were some concerns raised with the verbiage of the amendment itself. So I just wanted to point out to council as well as to the community where we've clarified and tightened some of that language to make it, I think, explicitly clear what is the intent of that Fairplex is requesting. So I'll just share my screen briefly.
Oh,
here we go. And so here, this is a track change of the agreement and shows all the places that we have suggested a change here. So for under effective date, it just makes it clear that it's referring to when the amendment becomes effective. It's once all signatures have signed. We changed the section 3 from deposit to more appropriately reflect the amendments, the 2 amendments that are being requested here, and clarified it's section 7E. There was some concern raised, I think rightfully so, that the previous agreement seemed to delete the entirety of all of section 7, which was not the intent, only section E, which referenced the contribution to the funds. So here in section 1, it's the effective date. We made clear that August 20th, 2019 was the original executed date of the agreement, and that it is the term would end until 2023. And then 7 here below in red, we added 7E as well. So it's clear only the section 7E is to replace, not the entirety of section 7. And so with that, I'm available for any questions, as I know Miguel Santana from the Fairplex is here this evening as well, as along with other Fairplex staff. So if you'd like to have us answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Anita, for that presentation. I understand from Rosalie, we do have some members of the public who wish to speak on this item. Let's go ahead and take their comments and then open it up to the City Council for discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll go ahead and read the comments that were submitted via email. First comment is from Judith St. John. Please notice that the First Amendment has a serious flaw. In the recitals Part A, number 3, it says that Section 7 is deleted in its entirety, but does not replace A, B, C, D, E, and F of Section 7. The First Amendment needs to make clear what is retained and what is changed from the original agreement. I request that the vote on the item be postponed to give the mayor and council members more time to study the changes. Perhaps the council will want to make additional changes. Since parking revenue is diminished because of COVID, could there be a per car charge drive-through events? Or a portion of the ticket prices to go to the city for drive-in, drive-through events? Should the amendment make clear what the role of the community will be in preparing the specific plan? At what intervals will the community participate? How much time is anticipated for each step of the process? What has been accomplished so far? Next item is from Maria Elena Garcia. Please consider the residents of Pomona and allow them the time needed by the community that surrounds the Fairplex to properly give input on these changes. Keep in mind the community spent over 3 years coming to terms on the original agreement. Thus, we strongly urge the City Council to continue working with the community and Councilman Torres regarding the future of the Fairplex. There are still a lot of issues that have not been fully addressed. Next comment from Susan Santee. As I remember, it took at least 3 years and countless City Council meetings to achieve the document now in place. While I'm sympathetic to the circumstances that are prompting this revision, I feel that more time is needed so that all parties concerned have a meaningful input in the decision. This should not be rushed, as there are ongoing concerns with the Fairplex that are not being addressed. At this time, I urge the City Council to postpone any decision regarding Agenda Item 16 in order to allow Councilmember Torres to continue working with the community, City Council, and Fairplex to come to an equitable solution. Next comment is from Reina Garcia Ramos. On item 16 of tonight's agenda, there is concern by many of those of us that worked for the past 3 years to help bring mitigation funds from the Fairplex to a reality for District 6 and for the city of Pomona. It is interesting to see how much everyone is now interested in these funds and yet did not support the voices of the community when we began this process, but now want to credit for making this happen. The Fairplex always does what is best for its business model. The surrounding community was not informed when it was decided to convert the Sheraton Fairplex Hotel to house medically quarantined individuals, or maybe the City Council and Mayor at the time decided it was not important to inform the surrounding community that this was going to happen until it was a done deal. Today, as we see the ugliness of COVID cases in the city of Pomona alone, I wonder what the action plan is to help bring relief to the city, and if any of our own city residents were allowed to use the Sheraton Fairplex Hotel facilities when they needed to be quarantined. See LA Times report below on number of COVID-19 cases in Pomona today, California coronavirus cases tracking the outbreak. Next comment is from Lisa Gomez. The City Council now more than ever needs to be diligent regarding all matters that pertain to the Fairplex F-Zone. When is the community going to be involved? Not the friends of the Fairplex or their board members, but actual residents that are affected by the noise and traffic that still exists. Why isn't this issue resolved? The City Council needs to make sure the agreement remains as is. And the next final comment is from Miguel Garcia Ramos. More time is needed by the community that surrounds the Fairplex to properly give input on these changes. Keep in mind the community spent over 3 years coming to terms on the original agreement. Thus, I strongly urge the City Council to continue working with the community and Councilman Torres regarding the future of the Fairplex. There are still a lot of issues that have not been fully addressed. And that was the final email comment this evening. If there are any other speakers that would like to speak that are currently on Zoom, now is your opportunity. And Mayor, I don't see any
Okay.
any hands
Thank
up.
you. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open up to the council. Councilmember Nolte, any comments or questions? Are you there, Councilmember? I'm not seeing Councilmember Nolte. We may have lost him, or I may be missing something. Councilmember Preciado?
I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor Garcia?
No questions, Mayor, but I would like to thank the Fairplex for everything they've done for the community during this COVID-19 outbreak. I really appreciate the fact that family and friends don't have to go far to get tested. I also really appreciate them opening up the facilities for food drives to feed our community. So I have no further questions or comments at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Ana Veros Cole?
Yeah, I'd like to echo the same thing. My question is though, what is the main concern that Mrs. St. John has right now at this time in regards to it? Has it been the length of time, the lapse of time in between, or what?
Well, if I may, Councilmember Cole, I think as I understood it, her main concerns were some of the language in the draft amendment, which as I shared my screen earlier, I think we've addressed. I believe that to be her main concern.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, Councilmember Ana Veros Cole?
No, I'm still thinking about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Lestro?
No comments this time.
Thank you. Councilmember Torres?
Yes, I'll keep them really short too, because, you know, I really have no major changes or, you know, issues here at hand. I just want the community who has been contacting me over the last couple of weeks to kind of hear my 2 cents about this issue so we can clarify things from someone they trust. I just want to thank the residents of District 6 for coming out and voicing your concerns and for staying involved in this particular issue. I'm glad that we've had some really great residents in my district who've been able to stay on top of a lot of the language and to keep me informed about different concerns that they have in the community. It's helped a lot along the process. And as you know, we've achieved a lot by working together. And at the same time, I want folks to know this. You know, I'm very sorry to hear about the financial constraints and the impact that COVID-19 has had on the Fairplex. You know, and although I've had many disagreements and I've been very outspoken, I never wanted to see the Fairplex in this situation. And in the past, I don't want to get into all the details, you know, and I don't want to start talking about the raves and the issues and the traffic. But there was a lot of valid reasons as to why the community wanted to start asking for some changes. And I don't want to get too much into them, but we all know about them. But in regards to this particular agreement, I just want to echo some of the comments that the committee has said so that my colleagues and the mayor fully understand. It did take 3 years to negotiate this agreement. A lot of hard-fought conversations, a lot of time was invested into helping produce this agreement. And I would be lying to the community if I didn't tell them, if I told the community I had no part of this agreement of negotiating it, coming up with the 1.5 million and fighting for it, I'd be lying to the community if I told you I didn't do that. The fact of the matter is I tried really hard, and I'm really proud that we've come to a place where the Fairplex is now profit sharing with the community and paying into what we call neighborhood improvements rather than enhancements to the property. I think that's a step in the right direction, and it's a testament to what this deal has really accomplished. And it's produced money for the community. Currently there's $400,000 in that mitigation fund, and that mitigation fund goes all the way to Arrow Highway. It goes out to different parts of District 6. We could reach 1.5 million, and which is why I'm not opposed to any extensions onto this agreement. I really hope that we can get over the COVID-19 pandemic so that we could begin the profit sharing deal, so that we could begin investing in our roads, investing in the parks. And I think that moving forward, the community is really going to have to be, well, I take that back. I don't want to say it, not have to be, they are. The community is really going to be involved in the future of the Fairplex, because we don't know how long COVID-19 is going to linger. It may be another year and a half, 2 years before they can start having these events. And at the same time, there's a lot of questions as to where the future of the campus is headed in regards to COVID-19, housing. There's a lot of different line items within that strategic plan appendix that members of the community want clarity on, and they definitely want to be part of it, and they want to be part of those discussions. And lastly, I just want to say I'm coming off a really great win in District 6, and I don't think, this is probably the greatest opportunity to be talking about this right here. I mean, this is probably the greatest time that I'm in touch with the community of that area and fresh with them. So if we could engage these conversations soon, rather than a year down the line, that would be really helpful. But like I said, I really hope we can get through this pandemic. I want to continue that 3-year deal. Really sad to see what happened with the Fairplex. I really hope things turn out for them. And thank you for everything you're doing in the community. That's all I have today, Mayor. Thanks.
Anita, I understand that Miguel Santana is on the line.
Yes, Mayor.
Miguel, are you there?
Let me let him in. 1 second. There you go, Miguel. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Good evening, everyone, and happy holidays. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to respond to your questions. As Councilman Torres indicated, this has been a very difficult year for Fairplex. Probably the most difficult in the last 100 years that we've been here. But very frankly, I am very proud that we have served the community in ways that our founders never imagined. The work that is taking place on this campus is literally saving lives, many lives here in Pomona. And it really has been our finest moment in being able to provide such a hugely needed support for our community. As has been discussed, this is not what we imagined. And so what we're simply asking is for a 1-year extension to the agreement. We're hopeful. Hopefully it's not 2 years, Councilman Torres, but we're hopefully sooner than that. We're hopeful that by this time next year we would hopefully start having events again. But none of us know for certain. This is highly unpredictable. What this allows us is to still continue on the agreement, the principles that we laid out, which involves the community throughout this process. It's a requirement when you do a specific plan that the community be consulted every step along the way. And you have a team there at the city who's been working very closely with our team in making sure that it's a process that involves everyone. The last thing I'll say is this, as you may know, this is my last few days at Fairplex. I will be leaving the organization, but I have to say that it's been a real pleasure working with each and every one of you. And I'm excited about what the future brings. The community and the organization is in good hands with Walter Marquez, who the board has appointed as interim CEO. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. I just want to acknowledge that Councilman Nolte is back with us. And after I say a few words, I'll go ahead and ask him if he wants to say anything. And if not, we'll go ahead and move forward. So before I go over to you, Councilman, I just want to say that I echo some of the very comments made by my colleagues about the role that the Fairplex has played during the past, really what amounts to the past 8 or 9 months, really since COVID hit. And the fact that their staff has been allowed to participate in very collaborative efforts to help people and to help Pomona residents. And as an example, I can tell you that when we first put together the Pomona Compassion Fund, and where we raised over $250,000 specifically to help the most vulnerable community members with rent, it was primarily to support our undocumented population who we thought may not be eligible for federal CARES Act dollars. And it was the Fairplex staff that helped to write those grants, that helped to bring the majority of the $250,000 that is now being distributed by Benita's team in the housing department. And that would not have happened without Fairplex. And it would not have, all the food drives and the Pomona residents who have been able to access the Sheraton Fairplex. I can tell you that I had a number of people over the last 8 or 9 months in desperation asking for help. And because the Sheraton Fairplex was one of the first hotels that stepped up to help people in their time of need, other hotels called the county and said, we want to do this as well. And I can tell you, Pomona residents accessed those hotels in other parts of LA County. In fact, because I think they saw what the Sheraton Fairplex was doing and stepped up to help others during this most difficult time. So I can certainly appreciate the very real financial challenges that the Fairplex is experiencing. I appreciate their desire to want to continuously collaborate. That's been the culture that I have experienced since I've become mayor, and I appreciate you. Miguel, we're going to miss you. And we wish you all the best in your new role with Weingart. We know that you will continue to be here at Pomona and to support the efforts that are going on at Pomona. And so we just want to, I just personally want to thank you for all the work that you've done to try to meet us at a place where the community may not feel that they get everything that they want, but they feel like they've had a partner that listens and that is willing to move in a direction that didn't exist prior to your leadership. So really want to express my sincerest thanks to you. I'm going to go ahead and move to approve this item to allow for the extension. And can I get a second?
Second, Mayor.
Okay, Vice Mayor Garcia, we'll do a roll call.
Nolte?
Yes, I apologize. I was gone for part of the discussion. My computer crashed.
Yeah, and forgive me, Councilmember Nolte. Feel free to speak on it. There's a motion, but feel free to speak on the item since you didn't get a chance to speak.
Yeah, thanks. Just a question. If this was already done, then don't do it again for me. But I did have a question. If somebody that's involved in the specific plan process could just kind of give a short sense of like where we are in that process. I know they've applied. Has it gone further than that? Like, how would you characterize how far along that specific plan process is at this point and how much is left to be done, I guess?
Nikki, you want to speak to that?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I can. Councilmember Nolte, I can address that. So we're at the beginning stages. So they did apply for the specific plan. We had a draft of the scope of work completed, which would begin to kick us off on our environmental. So we're just at the onset of being able to kick off our CEQA process and do the initial community meetings to discuss what the full breadth and scope of the project might be. So it was still at the beginning stages of that process.
And has it been determined, I know that you haven't been able to start community meetings, but had you already determined how many you were going to have and what those would look like? Or is that something that still has to be done? And maybe that was already asked.
We haven't specifically. We started to discuss it and had a plan, and then COVID happened. So then we started shifting and talking about doing virtual town halls. And so that kind of shifted again. And then it kind of became clear now is not the time to do that outreach, is to get that type of feedback. So we kind of paused on that. So we don't have a specific plan set in place. We have a lot of ideas, really great ideas. We began with the work of Natalie, who's been on the phone earlier, and some of my staff of starting a really robust list of community members and community groups to start the outreach with, but have not formalized that plan as of yet.
Okay, I think I would just say once that plan's kind of formalized and if the council could, I know I would be interested in just taking a look at it so we have a sense of, you know, what that community outreach plan is. I'd just like to kind of know what that is before it gets underway and maybe be able to have some input on that.
Happy to. I think that's a great idea. Happy to do that.
Okay, with that, then I support the motion.
And then,
yeah, go ahead.
And then, no, Mayor, I was just going to add, for the sake of clarity for some of the community members, if we could just add to your motion, if you're so willing, is to ensure that the replacement of section 7E does not include the elimination of the sub-paragraphs under 7E, which includes Roman numeral I, or 1 through 3. It does not include those, so those will remain. That's just a clarification.
I accept that, and
I'm sorry, Mayor, because I thought that was taken care of because that's what they were talking about. And I do want to make sure that's right. So can I just clarify, Anita, before we go on with, it seems like in the actual amendment in paragraph 3, it should just say sections 1 and 7E of the agreement. And then 3B should say section 7E. Is that right? Is that what you're doing?
No, so it's we've clarified that, so we already did that. There was a further concern that was brought up while we're meeting, which in the original agreement, 7E has Roman numeral or has a 1, 2, and 3 under 7E.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't clear in the amendment that was to remain. So it's just swapping out the main paragraphs of 7E.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
So I accept the change. Vice Mayor Garcia, I see that you're nodding your head yes, and so we can go ahead and do roll call, starting with Councilmember Nolte.
Nolte?
Yes.
Preciado?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Ontiveros Cole?
Yes.
Lustro?
Yes.
Torres?
Yes.
And Sandoval.
Yes. Okay, we move on to the next item.
Next item is item number 17. It's a discussion on an update of the current suspension and future implementation of speed humps within the city of Pomona.
Okay, looks like we have a staff presentation.
We do.
Okay, I turn it over to, is it Renee?
It is. I'm back again, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Finally here to give a presentation on speed humps, basically to talk about their history here in the city and any potential future consideration for speed humps. I have about 6 slides here. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, so it is well known that vehicles being driven at high rates of speed through residential neighborhoods have long been a concern expressed by Pomona residents. And that's because, quite frankly, speeding vehicles, high vehicle volumes, and cut-through traffic may adversely impact residential neighborhoods. So in response to that, back in 1996, Public Works initiated a pilot program in South Pomona to test the effectiveness of speed humps in deterring speed. If you're curious, those first speed humps were installed on Park Avenue between Olive and Geneva Streets, which is south of Rio Rancho Road. As one might expect, when residents observe the effectiveness of speed humps and when the city bears the full cost of the installation, as you might imagine, the number of requests for speed humps increases, and that's what's happened here. And so what this resulted in the creation of a neighborhood traffic management program. An application was created. The application included and still includes a petition where 65% or more of the property owners on that particular block have to sign an approval, have to sign on that petition. And design criteria was established for installation of speed humps. Basically, that design criteria is that streets that are 40 feet wide or less, and that's from curb to curb, and also those streets that have a maximum speed limit of 25 miles per hour. Those streets would be considered for speed humps when an application was submitted. So in the 7 years that this program was active, and more importantly, when it was funded, 446 individual speed humps were installed citywide at a total cost of approximately $502,000. That equates to about $1,125 per speed hump. Keep that number in mind, $1,125. So where did that $502,000 come from over those 7 years? Well, beginning in fiscal year 2001, 2002, the city approved speed hump projects in the capital improvement program and funded them with state gas tax monies, various bond funds, and CDBG funds. Then in fiscal year 2007, 2008, as the economy took a major downturn and the city began feeling those major impacts, the city refocused the monies used to fund the neighborhood traffic management program to other priorities. And frankly, since 2008, no speed humps have been installed as no funding sources were identified. The focus really changed to more street repaving, other safety enhancements, and active transportation improvements. And that continues to be our focus today. So also, since funding ended in 2008, and for the next 7 years after that, so between 2008 and 2015, the city staff actually continued to receive speed hump requests from residents. And those requests total about 260 additional individual speed humps. But after 2008, there were no funds to install those speed humps. So if you look at today's costs for a speed hump, it is estimated that it would cost about $1.17 million, or approximately $4,500 per speed hump, to install the 260 speed humps that were requested between 2008 and 2015. Recall, between 2001 and 2008, the average cost of a speed hump was $1,125. The increase in cost is due to a number of factors, including oil prices, the increase in oil prices, prevailing wage requirements, and inflation, just to name a few of those. So in April of 2015, after continuing to receive applications for speed humps with no funding, and frankly growing frustration on behalf of the residents, the City Council approved an indefinite suspension on the use of speed humps as a traffic control measure. So let's briefly talk about the pros and cons of speed humps. I think you all kind of have a good idea of the pros and cons. I'll just highlight a few. Obviously, when we talk about the pros, studies show that it does tend to reduce speed of motorists. And one of the other things that it does is it has this advantage of being kind of a self-enforcing visual. We always talk about, when we talk about driver behavior, we talk about things that we can put in front of a driver that could potentially cause them to slow down. For instance, road diets. That's one of the things that, as a traffic control measure, that shows that it causes drivers to slow down, just like speed humps do. What are the causes of those? Well, if you have speed humps on one particular residential street, what it does is it does actually divert traffic, motorists, to the next available street, because drivers don't want to drive on a street that has speed humps. And so they'll just go up to the next street. And so what happens to that street? Well, cars start speeding on that street. So traffic diversion is one of the cons of speed humps. Noise levels increase at humps due to the deceleration and more importantly, the acceleration of vehicles as they leave the speed hump. Cost is a con. And then the kind of common con that we have discussed in the past is that it does tend to create longer emergency response times for the larger emergency vehicles like fire trucks and other emergency vehicles that have to slow down on their way to respond to an emergency. They have to slow down to traverse over a speed hump. So what are what's an alternative out there? So regardless of the lack of funding, One of the major drawbacks of speed humps has historically been the delay caused in emergency response times, as I mentioned in the last slide. One alternative to speed humps, so as to not cause longer emergency response times, are speed cushions. Similar to speed humps as a traffic control measure to slow down vehicles, speed cushions provide gaps narrow enough to allow the wider wheel-based fire trucks and other emergency vehicles to drive through without having to slow down. And you can see that in the picture on the right-hand side. But speed cushions are also wide enough that common vehicles, common cars, will still have to slow down to drive over because their wheelbases are much smaller than those of the emergency vehicles. So they would still have to slow down. The speed cushions shown in the picture here on this slide are rubberized, and they are actually separate components that are affixed to the existing street pavement or street concrete, whatever that street may be. Considering the typical width of our local residential streets, we would need to typically place 4 of these cushions, 4 of these rubberized cushions per location, at a total estimated cost of about $4,000. Each one of those cushions is about $1,000 each. And if we're going to need about 4 of those to go across a typical local residential street, that's going to cost about $4,000. Now keep in mind, that's really only $500 less than the $4,500 price tag for a typical speed hump that we see out on our streets today. Last slide. But other than the rubberized speed cushions, asphalt cushions can be constructed as well. We estimate that asphalt cushions can be installed for roughly between $4,000 to $4,500 per location. The picture at the top here that you see is an example of asphalt cushions installed in the city of Diamond Bar. That's on Sunset Crossing Road. That road is a long residential road, and it's downhill. It's got a pretty steep downhill, so you might imagine that the folks over at Diamond Bar, and more importantly, the residents there, were probably seeing a lot of speeding vehicles as they were going down the hill. And so these speed cushions were placed at various locations in that stretch of Sunset Crossing Road. Regarding the rubber cushions, we've spoken to some of our colleagues over at the city of Pasadena who've actually installed those rubber cushions. Again, they kind of look somewhat near the picture there at the bottom. What they've told us is that rubber cushions actually require a lot more maintenance than the asphalt cushions do. And why might that be? Well, these rubberized cushions are, like I said, they're bolted down to the street asphalt or concrete. Typically what we've heard is that those things don't really sit flush on the street surface. And so that leaves it open for rainwater to get in between the cushion and the street. And then it gets into the holes that are created by the bolts. And then we all know what happens when water starts getting down into the asphalt and the concrete. It just starts deteriorating the concrete over time. And so we imagine that's why these rubberized cushions, again, require a lot more maintenance efforts than do the asphalt cushions. For the asphalt speed humps that we have in the city, very rarely are we called out for maintenance on those speed humps. It might be to repaint some of the striped legends that are on them. But other than that, we just kind of see over time the typical maintenance needs that we would see on any kind of typical asphalt street. But again, it is important to remember that the cost of speed cushions for your discussion that you're going to have here after my presentation, whether rubberized or asphalt cushions, cost will range from $4,000 to $4,500 per location. And so that basically ends my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have during your discussion, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Renee. Rosalie, do we have any speakers on this item?
There are no emailed comments that were submitted for this item, and I don't see any hands up from speakers here on Zoom, so no.
Okay, thank you, Rosalie. So I'm sure the council has questions and comments, so Renee, just be ready, and I'll ask Councilmember Nolte to get us started.
I actually am going to pass on to other people at this point and just listen for a moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Nolte. And I want you to know that I will not always call on you first. It's obviously this is the somewhat the consequence of virtual meetings versus in-person meetings, where I had that nice little device where council could raise their hand via this device, and I would know that you wanted to speak on the matter. So forgive me. Sometimes I'll start with Councilmember Torres.
Sure.
So we'll go ahead and move on with. I didn't want you to think that I was targeting you in your second meeting here. All right, Councilmember Preciado.
Renee, thank you for your presentation. I know many people, many residents, many of us have been asking for it for a while. Can you just help me out with some terms and clarification? For example, what is a collector street? As I saw you put residential and collector street is where the humps could be placed. I'm assuming that as well as the asphalt cushions as well?
That is correct. Thank you for that question, Councilmember. So your typical local residential streets are, and we're talking curb to curb, they're typically about no more than 36 feet wide when you consider 2 8-foot parking lanes and then roughly 2 10-foot drive lanes. That's about 36 feet from curb to curb. That's your kind of typical local residential street width. A collector street is a little bit bigger than that, a little bit wider than that. For instance, Hamilton is classified as a collector street. That is about 40 feet from curb to curb. And the other important thing I think to consider is that, you know, the current design criteria that we've had is that we typically don't want to install these kind of humps, whether it's a speed hump or a speed cushion, on streets that have a higher speed limit than 25 miles per hour. But we have seen in our research and preparing this that you can potentially consider putting speed humps on collector streets that have a 30 mile per hour speed limit, but no more than 30 miles per hour. Hamilton currently is a 30 mile per hour street, just to use Hamilton as an example. So Hamilton is a collector and it's a 30 mile per hour speed limit. And we could consider potentially that kind of collector for placement of speed humps or speed cushions.
Do you happen to know when and why those speed limits were placed?
Why they were placed or replaced or placed? Is that the question?
Like, you know, like can you give us the science about why they said 25 mile per hour streets?
Well, I think just kind of thinking for this, for me, I kind of think about it a little bit logically for me. I think when we think about those streets that have higher speed limits, when we talk about a 40 mile per hour street or a 45 mile per hour street, let's say, those speed limits are typically on much wider streets, like a Gary Avenue or like a Mission Boulevard. And it would be, in terms of traffic flow, to have something like a speed hump or a speed cushion on those type of streets would really cause some heartache and some congestion potentially, as cars would have to slow down. And when you have those type of speeds, and let's say you're a motorist or a driver, and you know you're not going to slow down to hit a speed hump. Although these speed humps are typically only about 3 to 4 inches high, when you're going at a faster rate of speed, you potentially could lose control once you hit one of these speed humps. And so those are some of the reasons why they don't, you know, they being the Institute for Transportation Engineers, these larger bodies that we look to for guidance, they don't suggest or recommend putting these speed cushions or speed humps on any street that has a speed limit higher than 25 miles per hour or even 30 miles per hour.
And I think you referenced the manual, and I know that you've referenced it with stop signs before. And so that's what I was just wanting to confirm. It can be found in you said Institute of Transportation of Engineers? Yeah, the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, is another body that we look to for guidance. You know, frankly, when we talk about stop signs and other signage, we look to the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Frankly, in the California MUTCD, they do not consider speed humps as an official traffic control measure. So they don't provide any real guidance when it comes to speed humps in the California MUTCD, which is kind of odd, but they don't. So we look to somebody like the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, for some guidance and some standards.
And then just because it stuck out to me, could you give me a clarification on why is it that oil prices have grown on the cost?
It's just, well, because asphalt, uses oil. The creation of, uses oil as part of its ingredient to create asphalt. And so, yeah, oil prices, we see our gas prices go up. It's because oil prices are going up. So does asphalt.
As of now, those are my questions. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Preciado. Vice Mayor Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to the Public Works Department for the options that they're presenting us regarding speed humps. But I have a question for you, Director Guerrero, since you just mentioned this and it caught my attention. Why are we considering something that's not approved or even recognized as a speed calming measure by the state of California?
Well, I would say, it's a good question, Councilmember. Thank you. It's not in the California MUTCD. It's not considered a. Well, quite frankly, I can't answer why they're not considering it. That's not to say, though, that speed humps are a very common traffic control measure used by many local agencies, not only in California, but across the country. And when we talk about across the country, that's where the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, comes into play. And it's enough that they do provide guidance, and they do provide a standard like this on the right side of the screen, although it says the Delaware Department of Transportation. That probably stems and comes from the ITE standard. And so there is a standard out there, and there is an acceptance of this as a traffic control measure, enough so that there are standards that we can follow.
Thank you very much, Director Guerrero. No further questions at this time.
Thank you. Councilmember Ronna Barros-Cole. Are you there, Councilmember?
You're on mute, Councilmember.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Just a question or two. Thank you very much again for presenting this. I think we've been looking forward to this for quite some time, and the constituents have as well. In regards to the verses of the you have the speed cushion and you have your regular speed bumps, and there is wear and tear on the speed cushions. And the rubber cushions, right? There is two different types, or is it the speed cushion versus the rubber cushion? Is there two different types versus the regular asphalt?
So to reiterate, thank you, Councilmember, for that question. When we talk about speed cushions, they could be either rubber, like you see in the bottom picture here on the screen, or they could be asphalt, like you see the picture on the top. So they perform in the same way. It's just that the ones on the bottom are rubberized, and you can buy them like that and then just really bolt them down to the street. Or you just construct the asphalt cushions like you see on the top picture. What we're hearing from our colleagues and other local agencies is that the rubberized speed humps, the ones you see at the bottom, tend to require more maintenance efforts. They get beat. The sun continues to beat down on them day in and day out. They start warping. And again, you can't necessarily, what we're hearing is you cannot necessarily affix those to the street where it's completely flush to the street. And so it might allow rainwater to get in there and then start causing damage to the surface, the asphalt surface or the concrete surface. Whereas the asphalt cushions, it's kind of your typical maintenance efforts that we typically see. And there haven't been too much of a need. They don't require too much of our time with the speed humps that we currently have on our city streets right now.
So basically, sometimes it's better to go with the most expensive in order for it to last longer, because the warranty or the wear and tear on these rubber cushions probably won't last. I have speed bumps on my street, and they've been there since 2007. And the only thing that is necessary for for them actually is to repaint them.
Yeah, restripe them.
And yeah, restripe. And they're just as great as they were before. So I guess the warranty is really not that great on your speed cushion. I mean, you can put them on pretty quickly, but the wear and tear of cars going over them for every day is probably not the best thing. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Ronagros-Cole. Councilmember Lestro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Renee, thanks for the comprehensive report, and probably most importantly, the chronology of how we got to where we are today. I've been asked a number of times over the last 2 years why we can't add speed humps on certain streets, and my answer has basically always been, well, there's kind of a de facto moratorium on speed humps, and this provides with a little bit more information and background with respect to explaining why we haven't done any in quite some time. As you're well aware, I've got a couple of streets in my district that are notorious for speeding and careless driving that I know will probably, well, one is really not a candidate for speed humps. The other one, given the cost, we'll probably not see them in the near future. But I look forward to working with you and your staff, hopefully after the first of the year, to maybe have some further discussion about potential alternative solutions for traffic calming on both of those streets. I know I might have some expectations of Public Works getting a little bit creative with respect to what you can and can't do. But I'm willing to listen to whatever suggestions that you may have, and hopefully we can come up with something that will help satisfy the residents and help slow down drivers. Thank you.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lestro. Councilmember Torres.
Yes, I'm glad that we're bringing this item back, and I'm looking forward to working with the staff on various different issues happening in my district. And I think it's going to take a combination of various different traffic calming measures to help address some of the issues that we're facing. Now, I did have one question in particular for staff as to out of any of the proposals, which ones have less of an impact on vehicle wear and tear? For example, I know people are following, there's people that follow the speed limit regardless if you're following the speed limit or not. The speed humps can have wear and tear on your vehicle with the struts and shocks and whatnot. Just curious, is there any studies out there to show which ones, regardless of the speed, which ones are less of damage onto the vehicle?
Thank you for the question, Councilor. If the question is between a full width speed hump versus one of these speed cushions, I don't know. I'm not aware of any study that says that one poses less of a threat to vehicles than the other. I might imagine that the speed cushions, like the ones we see here, if you're in a normal car, what one might do, and I've, for instance, driven down this exact street on Sunset Crossing Road, one side of your wheels would go in between the cushions while the other half of your vehicle goes over the speed hump. But it still mandates that you slow down. So, it's for those drivers that, maybe don't care and they're going to drive fast no matter what, and maybe really don't care about the damage it could potentially cause to their vehicles. but I think for a majority of us drivers out there, we're going to tend to slow down and try to minimize the amount of damage that these things could have to our cars.
No, great, thank you. Definitely want to keep the residents in mind because I hear both sides. I hear the need for the speed humps, and then I also hear the arguments from residents saying, they're damaging my vehicle. There's a definitely ground. Now, the other question I have is the ones that get bolted in. I know, have you discussed that in this report, the bolted ones?
We have briefly. I have briefly discussed it in terms of that they do require a little bit more maintenance needs, as we've talked to other cities who have put in these rubberized ones that are bolted down. That's as much as we've talked about them.
Do they ever get are there any incidents? Just curious about theft, or do people remove them? Because I see a lot of these signs, no dumping signs, and they just take them down, right? And I'm not sure if they've seen that, but.
Great question. We can certainly reach out again. I haven't heard that, but certainly if something can be walked away with, someone will do it, I'm sure. I just don't know if that's happened in other cities.
Yeah. No, well, thank you. I just say it because anything and everything happens in Pomona, for sure.
Okay, before, Councilmember Preciado wanted to say a few words, but I just wanted to weigh in, Renee. I support ending the suspension that was established back in 2015 by the City Council. But I want to make sure, as I say that it's understood by the residents and the community that it doesn't mean by lifting the suspension that somehow we're going to be able to put speed humps, bumps, whatever it is that we decide, all over the city. Because I think one of the main reasons why it was suspended back in 2015 was for financial reasons, is that we just could not support, I think it was 260 at the time, we just couldn't support all of those requests. And so my question for you, Renee, is should we decide to do this as a city council, where would we draw funds from? Because in adding, or I should say eliminating, or I should say ending the suspension, in order to put these speed bumps, it means we would have to eliminate something else, right? So I'm aware of CDBG dollars that can be used perhaps for this, but can you share with us where we may be able to tap into some funds, again, with realistic expectations that it isn't as if we're going to be able to do or to meet the request of every member of the community. And sometimes we'll get folks even on town, which I completely understand the speeding on town. We're not talking about speed bumps on streets like Town and Holt and Gary. That's not what this is about. This is really about a different type of street altogether. But can you talk about the funds?
I can.
Or defer to somebody else who may be able to talk about funds?
Yeah, I can take a shot at it. I think here's what I'll suggest for council consideration and maybe more discussion. Right now, when you're seeing our local residential streets being repaved, funding comes from a couple different sources, well, maybe 2 or 3 different sources. The main source of funding for our local residential street repaving is coming from SB1. And that's a fairly new source of money. It's only been the last 3 years that the city is starting to receive SB1 funding. And so I put that out as a suggestion that when we select a street, when we select local residential streets for repaving, that is probably the opportunity where we want to look at potentially putting speed humps or speed cushions. Now, when we start considering putting speed humps or speed cushions at $4,000 or $4,500 per location, well, you start kind of eating away at the overall budget for that street repaving, and maybe you can't go to the next block in street repaving, or maybe the length of repaving shortens because you're now taking a little bit of that street repaving money and you're putting it towards speed humps. That would be my suggestion. I think when we talked about CDBG funds, which used to fund the speed humps, as I mentioned in my presentation, you know, works as we've met with most of you kind of during CDBG time. You know, our recommendation has always been for the last couple, 3-4 years is we recommend putting your CDBG money towards ADA improvements, right? Sidewalk improvements, to really kind of address and kind of minimize the amount of lawsuits that may come our way because of ADA, of our ADA challenges. So I would kind of stay away from the CDBG. That's just my suggestion. Yeah, of course, you ultimately have the decision to make on that. But to wrap my lengthy answer to your short question, I would suggest looking at future street repaving projects as the source of funding for speed humps on a particular street. Now, that does beg the question though, if we're repaving a residential street, do those residents want speed humps or speed cushions, right? We would need to get at least 65% of the property owners in that block to say, yes, I want speed humps on my block. And then the last thing I'll kind of throw out there is the requests that we received between 2008 and 2015 for 260 individual speed humps. What do we do with those? Right, those are still out there. They come in. Those residents still want those speed humps. And so do we look at those locations as potential street?
Yeah, this is rather complex, simply because you do still have 260 out there. And so let's just say we ended the suspension, folks could be looking at 30 years from now, right? So just because there isn't tens of millions of dollars specifically for this. So that's why I raised the funding issue, because I think if, and I'm open to it, if we remove the suspension, right? I think there has to be realistic expectations on the part of the community. And I can't say that I have the answer on how we do that, other than to actually say that. But I think anything that's brought back, we have to think through those issues. And so, you know, as a staff, I would really encourage, should the council say, listen, we want to bring this back, which I would support, that we think through those issues, simply because I think folks are going to be disappointed. They'll be happy that we lifted the suspension, but they'll be disappointed that they're not going to get their speed hump, speed bump next month, a year from now, right? It's kind of like they want their street repaved. I totally get that. But we know that there's a tremendous cost to that, right? And the only reason that we're even considering these speed humps, speed bumps is that we see what's happening in the community around speeding vehicles. And they have tragic consequences, right? When people don't follow the law. And I'm not suggesting that putting a speed hump or a stop sign is going to prevent bad behavior. Bad behavior is bad behavior, and it will result in the loss of life if bad behavior continues. And we see it happening. We just saw it yesterday with a motorcyclist who lost his life. I believe it was a male who lost his life because a car veered out in front of him when they shouldn't have, and they fled. So that's my first question. James, do you want to just say a few words on that front as it relates to funds?
Well, I just think that if we're going to consider speed bumps and speed cushions in the future, it should be part of the overall budget process and identify funds during that time, and the council could make that a policy decision and decide at that time if that's how the money should be allocated.
Yeah, thank you, James. Appreciate you sharing that. And the second thing I have for you, Renee, is, and I know this report wasn't about roundabouts, which is not, it's supposed to be, it's supposed to calm, to slow down people as they get to intersections, right, where there are not four-way stop signs and two-way stop signs. Can you just comment on roundabouts? I see them in other cities very similar to Pomona. And I have to say that it certainly slows me down. And although I'm always following the speed limit, through those residential streets. But can you speak to roundabouts?
Sure, I can. Thank you, Mayor, for that question. So yes, roundabouts are typically found in intersections, right? Conversely, when we're talking about speed humps or these speed cushions, these are traffic control measures that are placed mid-block, right? Because somebody's speeding in between intersections. And that's where these speed humps and speed cushions come in. When we talk about roundabouts, again, they're at intersections. So if the discussion is revolving around trying to reduce speeding mid-block, roundabouts really aren't going to do that for us because they're at intersections, right? Let's say you've got a block and you've got a roundabout at one intersection and a roundabout at the next intersection. Well, what happens in between those two roundabouts is that someone's going to be speeding to get to the next roundabout to get around there. So roundabouts aren't necessarily going to control speeding mid-block, and that's what these speed humps and speed cushions do. Roundabouts, yeah, you will tend to slow down at a roundabout. Roundabouts are typically put where there may not be an all-way stop, right? Stop signs in all four directions. What we've typically found too is you don't typically want to put roundabouts where there's a high pedestrian traffic or even some pedestrian traffic. It might be somewhat difficult for a pedestrian to get through a roundabout because roundabouts kind of create wider throats, right? You actually have to kind of widen the street at the corners, so to speak, to have vehicles not make such sharp turns around the roundabout. And so they're certainly useful, roundabouts are. I can't give you a cost for those right now.
Yeah.
There's be more than $4,500 per location, but there are some benefits to them, and those are mainly to kind of keep traffic moving. Maybe if you have multiple roundabouts at multiple intersections along the same stretch of road, it kind of keeps cars flowing and moving without having to come to a complete stop at a stop sign.
Yep.
And so there are some certain benefits.
Yeah, I've seen them utilized I've seen them in Pasadena and Santa Monica. And, quite frankly, throughout Southern California. But what I do know is that people are running stop signs, or they're just, where there aren't stop signs, they're just speeding through. And, but I'd like to just know what the cost for a roundabout would be. It's by no means am I saying that that's the direction we should go in, given the cost. I would imagine it could be more than speed humps, but it may not be. I just don't know.
Sure.
And yeah, those are the only questions that I have really about funds that it would take, and just realistic expectations, and then just the question about the roundabouts. All right, Councilmember Preciado, you had a comment or question?
Yeah, well, first, I'd like to agree with you on, for those that don't follow the rules, this wouldn't help in either way. And as Director Guerrero mentioned, I mean, potentially it could be even more dangerous on vehicles that are speeding. I was really curious on how long. I mean, but a lot of it is just the fact that rules for cars haven't changed in a long time, and cars continue to progress and going faster as they're nearer cars. But I wanted to speak also on the city cost. On your presentation, it says that the city cost was incurred by, of course, the city, but would there ever be any potential for private funding? $4,000 to $5,000 per installation of a location if a block of residents were to say, we'll cover it?
Yeah, a great question, Councilor Chris. And I'm quite certain I've heard of programs like that in other cities where they've established a program, kind of like a donation program, right? Where maybe property owners get together and say, hey, we're willing to put up the money for it. I think that's something that can be considered. If you're talking about property owners kind of pulling their money together to do so, I think that's something we can look at, similar to, a group of people wanting to, have a tree planted or something to that effect. But I think that's something that could be considered.
Yeah, please, if yourself and city manager can take a look into that. Also, another it's along the same lines as, I also remember that, and I brought this up to you, there was a resident who wanted to pay for street bumps in an alley, and he wanted to pay to, he was actually gonna repave his entire alley, I believe it was a private alley, but he wanted to put speed bumps, but the moratorium wasn't allowed to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a private, I remember the discussion you and I had. If it's a private alley and not, not a public right of way, the resident might have a little bit more leeway as to what they can and can't do. Obviously, if there are other residents that, abut that private alley, they would, I would imagine they would probably want to have a say in what goes on in that alley. But there's a difference between private alleys and obviously public right-of-way alleys. Public right-of-way alleys are a little, it's just like a public street.
But I even question that, even if it were a public alley, let's say, because we have locations where they're old apartment buildings or there's a stretch of a block of old buildings that maybe there was never an agreement on, and maybe there's still dirt. Maybe it is just an alley that was paved at one point, and then it is a public right of way. But if it meets all the conditions, I would like to revisit that, especially if they're willing to pay for it.
Sure, I'd be glad to revisit that with you, but we can do that offline. I think after the beginning of the new year, I would, let's talk more about that for sure.
And then I don't believe it needs to be done today, and maybe it comes back with the roundabouts that Mayor Sandoval spoke to. But I think it would be good for residents to know about our street repavement process and what goes about when we do the street repavement process. What are the safety guidelines? What considerations are we taking on the walkability of, as you mentioned, ADA compliance, the ATP compliance of those? Where does the funding come from? I know SB1 has been a huge help that is fairly new. As many people know, the city of Pomona since 2008 was heavily hit financially, and I'm glad to see the way our numbers are moving now. But also, so people get to know what our timelines are like, and why is it that in August is typically when they see all of the new repaving of the street.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly do that. I would say, some of the funding sources that I mentioned, like SB1 or Measure R, Measure M, we are seeing a decrease in those funding sources right now. SB1 is based on gas tax, and obviously during the pandemic, people weren't driving as much, so they weren't buying as much gas. So we're definitely seeing a decrease in that money. So hopefully we'll start getting back up to normal levels.
Thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And Renee, just to Councilmember Preciado's point about maybe a block that decided they wanted to do this, maybe perhaps how it could work is that it just be matching funds, so that, I don't know, let's just say it's $5,000 and we contributed $2,500, they contributed $2,500. Maybe that's a path. But by no means I'm saying that we should do that. It's just something for consideration. Okay. Because we're going to have to, I mean, should we bring this back? And I think that's probably what the council wants to do, is we're going to have to address that question about, well, who gets priority, right? It's not like the 260 is ranked from 1 to 260, I would imagine. So these are the kinds of things that we have to think through, because again, there's the potential for tremendous frustration and anger from the community if we lift a suspension with somehow this expectation that it's just going to happen in a short period of time. So I think that anything you bring back you should build that into your presentation. How do we message that? Councilmember Nolte, I know you wanted to kind of hear the rest of the council members. Would you like to add anything at this time?
Yeah, sure. It's interesting. I was on the council actually when we did the moratorium, so this is bringing back flashbacks. I do want to confirm that the reasons that I recall were because of cost, but what it sticks out even more in my mind is exactly what you were just talking about with regards to frustration. In other words, we had this large backup of people who'd achieved what they were supposed to do in order to get approved to get their speed humps, and then they just weren't coming. And there was a lot of frustration and backlash about, why that wasn't happening. And I just want to point out, I mean, we're looking at 3 or 4 times the cost to do that now. We've got, I don't know, those 260 speed humps, how many people that represents who would probably be knocking on the door to be first in line, and whether it makes sense to do those first, and how do you tell those people no? I mean, I think the political considerations are significant for reopening the moratorium. And then the other thing I just recall is that, it wasn't clear, and I don't think it's clear still that they're effective. I think it's clear that they're effective on the street where they are, but there's not, at least I haven't seen a whole lot of, hard data about what happens on the street next door or the street next to that. I mean, there's definitely the understanding that you're likely to increase traffic on those streets. And I mean, if you improve one street, but you reduce safety on another street, are you achieving something useful or not? And then the other thing I wanted to mention in the staff report, there was a list of, or this was, I guess, the old staff report from 2015 that was part of our packet, where they talk about the specific alternatives to speed humps that would be employed, including logging all speeding and other traffic complaints, identifying street segments that are the subject of multiple similar complaints, conducting traffic counts and speed surveys, determining the percentage of vehicles in excess of 10 miles per hour over. I mean, if that was done according to what the city basically said it was going to do, we should have a lot of data about what happened with those alternative measures. And I would, in looking at what we're going to do in terms of reopening access to speed humps, I'd like to see, what happened with the alternatives. Is there any evidence that they were effective or more effective? And that should be a consideration, I think, when we think about the amount of money we'd have to spend to do speed humps. The other thing I would just say is, another thing that might help would be to increase the transparency and the information that's out there about those alternative measures. I mean, we may be doing them, they may be having effects, and people just may not know, what the results are. So if it's happening in a neighborhood, making sure the neighborhood, everybody knows about it, everybody's consulted beforehand and afterwards to see if it worked, those kinds of things. In any case, my suggestion would be, and I think what I would support is if we're going to end this moratorium and bring speed humps back, I wouldn't want to do it until we have a new process that makes sense, that's objective and data-based, where we're all in agreement with first of all, how we're going to deal with the 260 speed humps that are already qualified, and second, going forward, how is it that people will qualify? And I think that those criteria, if it's going to be that on a specific street that's being repaved, speed humps are open to be considered on that street, then, I think there should be, in addition to do the residents want them, should certainly be a factor, but other factors should be considered and analyzed, like, are they likely to be effective on the street? How many emergency vehicles come down the street? And, what's going to be the likely effect on the streets next door if we put speed humps here? And all those things should be part of the consideration about whether we allow them on any specific street. And then final comment is just, I'm certainly interested in the idea of private funding, and it could be a solution, but immediately what came to mind was like the equity considerations of that. If people in certain parts of the city can afford speed humps and people in other parts of the city can't afford speed humps, and the idea is that speed humps save lives, then is it really fair that certain parts of the city have greater access to life-saving technology? And that would worry me as well. Although
I think the way you address that is that the residents who are petitioning, that should just be factored in. I wouldn't want to place an undue burden on a group of residents simply because they can't afford to be able to put a speed bump if that's what they wish to do on their street. So it would that to me would have to be factored in as to there's some folks that can afford it, some that can't, but I wouldn't want to, I personally would never want to penalize a group of community members who want to do this should be decided to move forward on it simply because they can't afford it.
Yeah, I don't know how you would do that. I mean, if there's a way to factor that in, we can consider it, but it seems a little bit difficult to me. I mean, it just seems like if it's about raising money on a block, certain blocks are going to have much more capacity to do that than other blocks.
Understood. Okay, one possibility here, simply because there are a lot of questions that still need to be answered, is maybe we have a subcommittee of the council work with you, Renee, and to discuss this issue. Are there, because there's still some more questions to be answered. So I'd like to propose that we establish a subcommittee of the council to work with Renee and his team to get some of these questions addressed, and then bring back a report based on some of these outstanding issues. Are there any members of the council who would like to be a part of that subcommittee? I see Vice Mayor Garcia, Councilmember Lustro, and I would recommend, and Councilman Ronald Cole. So Renee, so Councilman Ronald Cole, Councilmember Lustro, and Vice Mayor Garcia would like to work with you to address some of these issues, and then bring back in the near future a report on what has transpired with the subcommittee.
Sure.
Vice Mayor Garcia?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to be part of the subcommittee, but I just counted. So it would be me, Councilmember Lustro, and Councilmember Ontiveros Cole, correct?
Yeah, we want to make sure that we keep it to. I'm just looking at the number of task force that I'm a part of, and subcommittees that I'm already part of. So I think it's appropriate that somebody else participate other than me. Thank you, Vice Mayor Garcia. Okay, are there any additional questions from the City Council? I see Councilmember Preciado, you're unmuted. Do you want to say something?
No, just thank you very much for the conversation. As you said, there's still a lot of questions to be answered, and echoing what Councilmember Multi said, I think a lot of it has to be data driven. Definitely showing why and if they're effective. We wouldn't want to cause a safety hazard inadvertently. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Rosalie, I understand that there's a member of the community who had some difficulty getting on. Would like to just share a few words. Very personal experience. Was hoping to speak during this item during public participation. Is she still on the line, Ms. Cadena?
I don't see a hand up.
I'm on the line. I'm still here. Oh,
okay.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Ms. Cadena. We can hear you just fine.
Great. Thank you.
Just so you know, you have 3 minutes, okay?
I understand that. So I'll make it quick. I understand all the PC and political and money and all of that. I get that 100%. But what I want you to also keep in mind and top of mind is that speed humps, bumps, whatever you want to call it, it's a deterrent for drivers that don't care, that have bad behavior. So as a community, you have to take it in your hands to put these things into place to mitigate any of these risks, deaths that are happening like it happened to my sister. Granted, yes, it was a drunk driver, but the fact is that this has been going on in this community, in this city for over 15 years or 10 years or however long, and it's been on record. And the fact that there was a moratorium, and now I'm hoping that you suspend that. And whether it may not happen overnight, I understand that, I get that 100%. But we want to make sure that we take every avenue to make sure that this community, the city of Pomona, is safe. And so how it's done, or where you find the money or whatever, I get all the political stuff that you have to go through. I get that 100%. But we also have to keep in mind the human side of it as well. So Renee, I appreciate everything that you talked about tonight. Everybody else, I appreciate the consideration, but I also want, and I get the data, I get all of that, been there, done that. But I also want to make sure that you all understand that my sister's death is not going to be in vain. And she's been a Pomona resident for many, many years, over 20 years. And I know there's a lot of residences that would like to see the speed humps in. So anything that you can do, again, I understand it, and it's not going to happen overnight, but we have to, it will be a deterrent. We need to mitigate the risk as much as possible so there's not another life lost. And that is the ultimate objective here, folks. And we need to make sure that we keep that in mind, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Vanna. Appreciate your comments. Okay, all right, Renee, so this is a discussion item. No formal action is being taken except that we're establishing a subcommittee. You've had a chance to hear from the city council, from the community, and obviously there's still some outstanding questions before we move forward with any final decision. Okay? All right, Rosalie, if you'll take us on to the next item.
Absolutely, Mayor. Next item is matters initiated by city council members. These are items for future city council consideration as requested by the mayor or members of the city council.
Alrighty, Councilmember Torres, we'll start with you. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. No major items at this point. I just do want to acknowledge some of the speakers in the public comments section who have been calling for the police commission. Just want to make sure that this remains a priority for the mayor and city council, and that we bring these conversations forward because the community wants to finalize these issues. Thank you.
Councilmember Lestro.
Nothing tonight, sir. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Councilmember Honoraros-Cole.
No, thank you very much, Mayor. Just happy holidays. Please stay safe in every circumstance. Thank you.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to, I want to wish city staff, my fellow colleagues, the city of Pomona, a very happy holiday season. Please stay safe. And I also want to thank everyone who is going to be working over the holidays to make sure that we all have what we need in our homes. So to all of our essential workers, all of our Teamsters and employees at City Hall who are going to be taking those calls, thank you so much for working while the rest of us rest, and happy holidays. Stay safe, everybody. See you in 2021. Crossing our fingers for a better year.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Garcia. Councilmember Preciado.
I'd like to bring up again that I would like for us to come up with a timeline or come up with a when can we look into having our meetings for goals and priorities. I also, as soon as we get a chance, is even if before we set the date, can we take a look at which format we're going to take this time? Are we going to do it in conjunction like as we did last time? Yeah, I just feel like it's incredibly important, especially when we're talking about accountability of ourselves to our residents and to everyone, making sure that we're all in it together. So goals and priorities. Happy New Year to everybody on the way. We'll see you in 2021. Be safe in the holidays. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, city staff, for everything. Appreciate you. Also, the new year is Nora's birthday, or Vice Mayor Garcia's birthday, so that's what I'll be celebrating safely at home. Take care.
Thank you, Councilmember Preciado. Just on the question of the goals and expectations, and when you raised last time, we're looking at February, March at the latest. Okay, and we can talk about the format and what that'll look like. I mean, the last time we did it, we went to the Red Cross, and which was great, but it's under different circumstances now. So very likely it'll have to be virtual, but we can talk more about that during our emergency preparedness committee meeting, our next one. Okay? Alrighty. Thank you. Councilmember Nolte.
Nothing tonight, but just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. It's great to be back working with all of you. Appreciate all that you do. Thanks so much.
You're muted, Mayor.
I apologize to the council. Thank you, Vice Mayor Garcia. I do have three things that I just want to bring forward for consideration. The council is aware of this already, but I want the community to be aware is our work around the moratorium eviction. We will have a presentation and options that the city council will consider in the first meeting of January as it relates to the moratorium eviction that will end February 1st, I believe, January 31st or February 1st. Correct me if I'm wrong, Councilor, but it's around that time. And we want to make sure that we're proactive and that we get out in front of it. We know the state and the county may still take action, but that will come before the city council at the next meeting, which is January 4th, I believe. Okay. The second thing, Councilor, and I had spoken to you about this earlier. The city of Long Beach and the city of Los Angeles have passed resolutions and are currently working on ordinances that would provide hazard pay, or what some people call hero pay, for our grocery workers. If you're not aware, they are being adversely impacted during this time. They're essential workers, obviously we need to buy food. So I've asked Sonia to look at, see what Long Beach has done, what the city of Los Angeles is doing for consideration by the city council to support our grocery store workers, similar to what Long Beach and LA have done, and to bring that back to the first meeting in January. And then the last thing, and this probably goes to your wheelhouse, Anita, but when I was looking at the development fees for public art, which is 1%, either it can be put in lieu dollars that the Cultural Arts Commission considers, public art, I know that the current program for that is specifically for public art, right? And last budget cycle, I had asked for a percentage of that, or a certain amount, to be allocated to youth artists. And I know that's still being figured out by the Cultural Arts Commission as to what defines a youth. So I leave it to them to figure that out. I think they're certainly best equipped to do that. But I'd like to bring forward a recommendation that looks a little different than how we currently allocate that 1%. I'm not suggesting we should increase the 1%. It's more about how we allocate that 1%, because what I had recommended was a one-time recommendation of a budget of, I don't recall if it was 1.2 million, and I said, I'd like to see half of those dollars spent on youth artists to do work in the city, whether it's an electrical panel or a public art or a mural. But I'd like for the city council to consider to allocate, you have 100%, right? Is that 25% of it be for young artists in training? I think it's important that if we have an opportunity to develop and support some of the programs that exist already that are helping to train our artists, if we can do that, I'd like to bring something forward to the city council for consideration. I believe we can, but you can look into that more about what latitude we have. The second 25% would go specifically to youth artists. And then the 50% would go to general artists or artists in the community who have been identified or have applied to be considered for these public dollars. The reason I introduced the youth artist training is I think it's just so important for us to create opportunities for our young people to participate and to develop their skill sets in the arts. There's a lot of tremendous talent here in the community. Those dollars don't do that currently, and I think it would be a reasonable percentage of dollars that could go specifically to some of the organizations that are already doing some outstanding work around youth development and young artists in training. So we can talk about it offline, but I'm just introducing it. I wanted to share with the city council, and what stimulated it was when we were going over when I was reading the report on the impact fees, which I know for you, Councilmember Nolte, one of the things that the council has asked for is to revisit our fees. So for example, currently our fee for Parks and Rec is $650. That was last changed in 1988 or 89. It's abysmal, and so to really better reflect the current times, city staff is doing with the consultant will be updating those fees that are perspective of the fact that we're in 2020.
I saw that there's a February report and then maybe a June finalization. That's what I saw as the time?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Okay, all right, that's all I have. And again, Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy New Year. Take care of yourselves. Staff, wish you and your families all the best. And with that, we can go ahead and adjourn this meeting to the next meeting, which will be on, is this right? Monday, January 4th? It seems, what were we thinking? That's like the day after New Year's Day. I mean, wow, okay. All right. Well, listen, everyone, be safe, take care, and have a good night.